All right, let's dive right in. Today we're tackling a challenge I think we've all faced at some point, building a corporate training program that doesn't just exist, but truly makes an impact.
Yeah.
We're not talking about just checking boxes here. We're talking about actually moving the needle on skills performance the whole 9 yards.
Absolutely. And to guide us on this deep dive, we're turning to David Vance's work, specifically Chapter 12.
Okay.
He really digs into the nitty-gritty of setting up your training function for success. Not just the structure, but also, and let's be honest, this is often the sticking point, how to actually get it funded.
Yeah, because who hasn't poured their heart into creating amazing training content only to see it fall flat because it wasn't aligned with company goals or lacked the resources to truly thrive? It's so frustrating.
It is, and that's where Vance's insights become so valuable.
Okay.
He argues that one of the biggest mistakes companies make is treating training as an afterthought. Something separate from the core business strategy.
Okay, I'm already seeing how this deep dive is going to be different.
Yeah.
So how do we avoid that mistake? Where do we even begin to build that solid foundation for a high-impact training program?
Vance is adamant that it all starts with the organizational structure of your training function.
Yeah.
It's like building a house.
Right.
A weak foundation means even the best design won't stand up.
Makes sense.
He outlines 3 primary structures. And while you've probably heard of them, I think the real value here is understanding which one is going to be your power move depending on your company's unique situation.
Okay, challenge accepted. Let's break down these structures, not just in theory, but in terms of what they actually mean for results. First up, we have the centralized structure.
Right, the classic command center. Everything flows through a dedicated training department. Think consistency, standardized processes, potentially even cost savings through economies of scale.
Yeah.
Now, this could be incredibly powerful, especially for companies with a very unified corporate strategy and culture.
Mm-hmm.
If you need everyone on the same page, singing from the same hymn sheet,
Mm-hmm.
this can get you there.
Makes sense, but in my experience, that one-size-fits-all approach can sometimes backfire, especially in companies with diverse departments, each with its own unique needs and priorities. Is that where the decentralized structure comes in?
It is.
Yeah.
Think of this as giving each department or business unit the keys to the training kingdom, empowering them to tailor programs to their specific needs.
Mm-hmm.
Now, on the surface, this sounds fantastic.
Yeah.
Maximum flexibility, responsiveness, all that good stuff. But, and this is a big but, it can lead to a real Wild West situation.
Ooh, I'm picturing training tumbleweeds rolling through the office, so chaos reigns.
Potentially. You risk inconsistencies, duplicated efforts, and programs that might be fantastic in isolation, but don't contribute to the overall company strategy.
Oh.
Imagine a sales team getting top-notch training on a new software, while the marketing team is left behind still struggling with the old tools. It's a recipe for internal friction and missed opportunities.
Okay, so both centralized and decentralized have their pitfalls. That's where the hybrid approach comes in, right?
Yeah.
The best of both worlds.
In theory, yes. You're essentially trying to strike a balance. A core curriculum, maybe for things like compliance or company culture, is managed centrally, ensuring consistency on the essentials, but then you give departments the freedom and budget to address their specialized needs.
Oh.
It's like having a base model car with the option for some seriously cool upgrades.
So how do we choose? I'm starting to see why Vance stresses the importance of alignment. It's not just about picking a structure, it's about picking the structure that's going to propel your company forward.
Exactly. A highly collaborative company, one where cross-functional teamwork is key, might lean towards a matrix structure.
Okay.
Shared responsibility, everyone work together, but that requires a certain level of trust and communication that not every company has.
Mm-hmm.
On the flip side, a fast-paced, innovative environment might benefit from a flatter structure, less bureaucracy, more agility, but that also means you need leaders in each department who can really own the training function.
So no easy answers. I like it. It's making me think about my own company. And I'm sure you're thinking the same thing, dear listener. What does your company's personality and, crucially, its goals tell you about which structure might be the right fit?
Keep those questions in mind as we move forward, because even with the perfect structure, there's another piece of the puzzle that often trips companies up. Collaboration, or rather the lack of it.
I love a good team effort. But in the context of training, I think people often underestimate just how crucial collaboration is. Why does Vance put so much emphasis on it?
Because too often training departments become these isolated islands. They're busy creating content, but they're not in sync with the real needs of the business.
Okay, I see the problem. You end up with training that's beautifully designed, but completely misses the mark because it doesn't address the actual skills gaps or challenges the company is facing.
Exactly. Vance argues that training needs to be woven into the fabric of the company, and that means working hand in hand with other departments. HR operations, finance, sales, marketing, everyone has a stake in the game.
This is making me think about all the times I've heard complaints about training being irrelevant or out of touch. It's not that the training itself was bad, it's that it was operating in a vacuum.
Right. If you want training that's going to move the needle, it needs to be informed by the people on the front lines. They're the ones who know what skills are needed, what challenges are emerging, what knowledge gaps are holding the company back.
So collaboration isn't just a nice to have. It's the key to making sure training is actually solving real-world problems and contributing to the company's success.
It is. And that brings us to the often dreaded but absolutely crucial topic of funding. Because even with the best structure and the most collaborative spirit, if you can't secure the resources, it's all for nothing.
Right. You can have the most brilliant training plan in the world, but if it's starved for funding, it's going to wither on the vine. So how do we make sure training gets the financial support it deserves? How do we convince those holding the purse strings that this isn't just an expense, but a strategic investment?
That's where things get interesting. And you'll notice that Vance's approach to funding mirrors the organizational structures we discussed earlier.
Okay, I'm sensing a pattern here. Hit me with the options.
First up, we have centralized funding, a single budget for the entire training function. Now, this can be great for control and consistency, ensuring that resources are allocated strategically and ideally avoiding duplication of efforts. But, and I'm sure you can see this coming, it can also create bottlenecks.
Right, especially in larger organizations. Individual departments might feel like they're losing control over how their training budget is spent. It can create this sense that the central training department is out of touch with their specific needs.
Exactly. And that's where the decentralized funding model comes into play. Each department gets to be its own little training kingdom, allocating its own budget, choosing its own programs, the whole shebang.
Maximum flexibility, but also maximum potential for inconsistency and, dare I say it, chaos.
Right. Imagine departments bidding against each other for the same training resources, or worse, investing in programs that overlap or contradict each other.
So we're back to the Wild West. Okay, so what's the solution?
Well, Vance unsurprisingly advocates for a blended approach.
Okay.
You might have a central budget for core training initiatives, things that benefit the entire company. But then you give departments the flexibility to supplement that with additional funds for their specialized needs.
So it's about striking that balance between control and autonomy, ensuring alignment on the essentials while still allowing for customization at the departmental level. It's like having a base model car with the option for some serious upgrades.
I see you're getting attached to that analogy.
It works! But analogies aside, I think we've laid some really important groundwork here. We've talked about the importance of structure, the power of collaboration, and the different approaches to funding, but I have a feeling we're just scratching the surface. What other insights does Vance have in store for us?
Welcome back to our deep dive into building a high-impact training program. We've talked about the importance of structure, collaboration, and funding. But now let's roll up our sleeves and get into the nuts and bolts of actually designing and delivering the training itself.
That's right. It's time to talk content. But before we jump into the latest and greatest in training delivery methods, I'm curious about something Vance emphasizes, understanding your audience. Why is that so crucial?
It seems obvious on the surface, but I have a feeling there's more to it than meets the eye.
You're right. It's not just about knowing who you're training. It's about truly understanding their needs, their motivations, their existing skill sets, and even their learning preferences.
Right.
It's about treating your employees like the diverse individuals.
Yeah.
They're not just a homogeneous blob of learners.
So we're talking about personalization, right?
Yeah.
Tailoring the learning experience to the unique characteristics of each employee.
Exactly. And this is where things get really interesting to me. Vance argues that a one-size-fits-all approach, while tempting for its simplicity, is rarely effective.
Yeah.
It's like trying to fit everyone with the same size shoe. Some people will be swimming in it, others will be squeezed in, and no one will be comfortable.
Okay, I'm getting the picture.
Yes.
So how do we actually go about understanding our audience? Do we just send out a survey asking what kind of pizza they like? That might be fun, but probably not that helpful. Vance suggests a multifaceted approach. Start with the data you already have.
Okay.
Employee performance reviews, feedback from managers, even engagement metrics from your current training programs. There are gold nuggets hidden in that data.
All right, so mine the data. What else?
Don't be afraid to go directly to the source. Interviews, focus groups. Even informal conversations with employees at all levels can provide invaluable insights.
Yeah, okay.
What are their day-to-day challenges? What skills do they feel are missing? What kind of learning environment do they thrive in?
It's about getting out of the training bubble and into the real world of your employees. And I imagine this whole process of understanding your audience can also help you build buy-in for the training itself, right? If employees feel like their needs are being heard, they're more likely to be engaged and motivated to learn.
Absolutely. When employees feel like the training is relevant to their work and their personal development goals, they're more likely to invest the time and energy needed to succeed.
Okay, so we've done our due diligence. We understand our audience inside and out. What's next?
Now it's time to define our learning objectives. What do we actually want employees to be able to do as a result of this training? Not just know, but do.
Right, because knowledge without application is like a car without an engine. It looks nice, but it's not going anywhere. So how do we make sure our objectives are focused and, crucially, that we can actually measure whether we've achieved them?
Vance, and I think most trained professionals would agree, is a big proponent of the SMART framework. Objectives should be specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-bound.
Okay. SMART objectives. It's a classic for a reason, but I think sometimes people get so caught up in the acronym that they forget what it's all about: clarity and accountability.
Exactly. If you can't clearly articulate what you want to achieve with your training and how you'll know if you've succeeded, then you're setting yourself up for disappointment.
All right, so we've got our SMART objectives locked and loaded. Now comes the fun part, right? Designing the actual training experience. And I have to say, with all the technological advancements happening in the learning space, it feels like the possibilities are endless.
They really are. Vince acknowledges that the days of death by PowerPoint are over. We have so many more engaging and interactive tools at our disposal, and that's where the concept of blended learning comes in.
Okay, blended learning. I hear that term thrown around a lot, but I think it can be a bit nebulous. What does it actually mean in practice?
It's about recognizing that people learn in different ways, and a truly effective training program caters to those individual needs and preferences. So instead of relying solely on classroom lectures or purely online modules, we're talking about a strategic mix of delivery methods.
So we might have some live in-person workshops for hands-on activities or group collaboration combined with online modules for self-paced learning and knowledge checks, and maybe even some on-the-job coaching or mentoring to reinforce those skills in real-world scenarios.
Exactly. It's about choosing the right blend of modalities to achieve your specific learning objectives. And technology plays a huge role in this.
Yeah.
We have learning management systems, LMS, to deliver and track online content, virtual reality simulations for immersive experiences, gamified learning platforms to boost engagement, and so much more.
It's like we've entered a whole new dimension of learning, but with all these shiny new tools, I think it's easy to get caught up in the novelty and forget what really matters, creating learning experiences that are relevant and applicable to the learner's day-to-day work.
You're hitting on a crucial point. Vance is adamant that training shouldn't be this abstract theoretical exercise. It needs to be grounded in the reality of the workplace.
So no more generic training scenarios about Bob and Alice from the fictional accounting department.
Unless Bob and Alice are facing challenges that your actual employees can relate to, probably not. Incorporate real-world case study simulations that mirror the tasks employees perform on the job and even on-the-job projects, where they can apply their newly acquired skills with real-time support.
That's how you make learning stick. When employees can see the direct connection between the training and their work, they're more likely to be engaged and retain the information.
Absolutely. And speaking of engagement, Vance highlights the importance of creating a learning environment that is not only relevant, but also psychologically safe and supportive.
Okay, psychological safety. It's a buzzword, but for good reason. Why is it so important in the context of training?
Because if employees don't feel comfortable asking questions, making mistakes, and experimenting without fear of judgment, they're not going to learn effectively.
Right.
Imagine a training session where everyone is afraid to speak up because they're worried about looking stupid. Not exactly conducive to deep learning, is it?
Not at all. It creates this culture of silence where people are more focused on avoiding mistakes than on actually understanding and applying the material.
Right. Vance encourages trainers to adopt a coaching mindset, acting as facilitators, mentors, and guides rather than just lecturers.
So it's about creating a collaborative learning environment where everyone feels valued and respected, and where mistakes are seen as opportunities for growth.
Exactly. And it's also crucial to provide ample opportunities for practice.
Right.
We don't want employees passively absorbing information. We want them actively engaging with the material, testing their knowledge and refining their skills.
Right. It's like learning to play a musical instrument. You can read all the books and watch all the videos, but until you actually pick up the instrument and start playing, you're not really going to learn.
That's a great analogy. And Vance suggests incorporating role-playing exercises, group discussions, simulations, and even on-the-job assignments, where employees can put their new skills to the test in a safe and supportive environment.
Okay, so we've designed our training program, we've created engaging content, we've fostered a positive learning environment. What's the final piece of the puzzle?
Evaluation. We need to know if our training is actually working. Is it achieving the desired outcomes? Are employees retaining the information and applying it on the job?
Right, because we don't just want training that looks good on paper. We want training that delivers tangible results. So how do we measure the impact?
Vance, and I think this is where the data nerds among us will rejoice, emphasizes a data-driven approach to evaluation. It's not just about asking people if they like the training. It's about collecting hard data that tells us whether the training is actually moving the needle on performance, productivity, and ultimately business results.
So what does that look like in practice? Are we talking pre and post tests, performance reviews, maybe even some fancy return on investment, ROI calculations?
All of the above.
Mm.
And with the technology available today, we can gather data not just on knowledge acquisition, but also on behavior change.
Oh, wow.
Are employees applying the new skills they've learned? Are they making fewer mistakes? Are they contributing to the team in new and valuable ways?
It's about gathering data both before and after the training to assess its effectiveness and identify areas for improvement. It's about making sure the training is aligned with those SMART objectives we talked about earlier.
Exactly. Evaluation isn't just a box to check at the end of the training program. It's an ongoing process that helps us make data-informed decisions about how to refine and improve our training strategy over time.
So it's about continuous improvement, constantly iterating and evolving based on the data we're gathering. It's about building a training program that's not static, but dynamic and responsive to the changing needs of the business and the employees.
Well said. And I think that's a great place to wrap up part 2 of our deep dive. We've covered a lot of ground, from understanding your audience and defining learning objectives to designing engaging learning experiences and evaluating the impact of your training program.
It's been a whirlwind of insights, but I know there's still more to come. In part 3, we'll explore some of the emerging trends in corporate training and discuss how to stay ahead of the curve in this ever-evolving field.
That's right. We'll be diving into the future of learning and development, so stay tuned for the grand finale of our deep dive.
Welcome back to the deep dive. We've covered a ton of ground already, from the nuts and bolts of structuring and funding a training program to the art of designing truly engaging learning experiences. But now it's time to look ahead to the trends shaping the future of corporate training. Are you ready to step into the training time machine?
I am. And I think what's exciting is that many of these trends aren't just futuristic concepts. They're already happening, driven by the rapid pace of technological advancements and the changing nature of work itself.
Okay, so less time machine, more like stepping into a training laboratory where the experiments are already well underway. What's the first trend that has caught your eye?
One that's really transforming the landscape is personalized learning. It's about moving away from that one-size-fits-all approach and recognizing that each employee has unique needs, learning styles, and goals.
Yeah, this makes total sense. It's like the difference between mass-produced clothing and a perfectly tailored suit.
Right.
The tailored suit fits you perfectly, while the mass-produced one might be okay, but it's never going to feel quite right.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And with the technology we have today, personalized learning is becoming increasingly sophisticated. Think adaptive learning platforms that adjust the content and pace based on the learner's progress.
Okay.
Imagine a program that recognizes when you're struggling with a concept and automatically provides additional resources or adjusts the difficulty level.
That's incredible. It's like having a personal tutor built into the learning platform. What else does this personalized training future hold?
But we're also seeing AI being used to recommend personalized learning paths. Based on your role, your skills, your career aspirations, the AI can curate a series of courses, resources, and even mentoring opportunities that are tailored to your specific needs.
It's like having a career GPS guiding you towards your goals. I love it. And this ties in nicely with another trend we're seeing: the shift towards skills-based training.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's no longer enough to simply have a job title. Companies are increasingly focused on the specific skills and competencies employees possess, regardless of their formal role.
So it's less about I'm a marketing manager and more about I'm proficient in digital marketing, data analytics, and content creation.
Exactly. And this shift is being driven by a number of factors. The rise of automation is changing the nature of many jobs. The gig economy is becoming more prevalent, and companies need employees who can adapt and learn new skills quickly to stay competitive.
Yeah, it's all about agility and being a lifelong learner. So how can companies implement this skills-based approach? Is it as simple as just listing out the skills needed for each role?
It's a bit more nuanced than that, Vance suggests, starting with a comprehensive skills gap analysis. What skills are in high demand within the company? Where are there shortages? What skills will be essential for future success?
Okay, so identify the gaps. Then what? Do we just throw a bunch of training courses at the problem?
It's about being strategic. Once you've identified the skills gaps, you can develop targeted training programs, but also consider other forms of skill development, like on-the-job learning,
Yeah.
mentoring, job shadowing, and even external certifications.
It's a holistic approach, recognizing that learning happens in many different ways and that not all skills can be taught in a formal classroom setting.
Precisely. And speaking of being strategic, another trend gaining momentum is data-driven training.
Data. The fuel that powers everything these days.
It's true. And in the world of training, data is becoming increasingly valuable. We can use it to measure the effectiveness of our programs, personalize the learning experience, identify areas for improvement, and even predict future skill needs.
So it's about moving beyond gut feelings and anecdotal evidence and using data to make informed decisions about our training investments.
Exactly. Think learning analytics dashboards that track learner progress, engagement, and performance.
Okay.
Imagine being able to see in real time which modules are resonating with learners, which ones are causing confusion, and where people are dropping off.
That's incredible. It's like having X-ray vision into the learning process. And with AI, we can even start to predict what skills will be needed in the future, right?
That's right. Predictive models can analyze trends in the industry, in the company, and even in the job market to forecast what skills will be in high demand in the coming years. This allows companies to proactively develop training programs that prepare their workforce for the future.
It's like having a crystal ball, but one powered by data instead of magic. And speaking of the future, one trend I'm personally excited about is the rise of social learning.
Me too. It's about recognizing that learning doesn't just happen in isolation. We learn best when we can connect with others, share knowledge, and collaborate.
So moving beyond the traditional classroom model and embracing the power of community and collaboration.
Exactly. And this is where technology can really enhance the learning experience.
Yeah.
Think online communities, discussion forums, virtual study groups, peer-to-peer mentoring, and even social media channels dedicated to learning and development.
It's about creating a culture of continuous learning where knowledge is shared freely and everyone is encouraged to teach and learn from each other.
And that brings us to the end of our deep dive into the world of corporate training. We've covered a lot of ground, from the fundamental principles to the exciting trends shaping the future of learning and development.
It's been an incredible journey. We've learned so much from David Vance's work, and I'm feeling incredibly inspired to apply these insights to my own training programs.
I'm glad to hear that. And remember, the key takeaway is that building a high-impact training program is an ongoing process. It's about being adaptable, innovative, and always striving to create learning experiences that are engaging, relevant, and ultimately transformative.
So, dear listener, we hope this deep dive has equipped you with the knowledge and inspiration to take your own training programs to the next level.
Remember, investing in your employees' development is investing in the future of your organization. So go out there and make learning happen.
Until next time, happy learning.